Welcome to the Top 10 Gardener with Master Gardener Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and top 10 advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your garden host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week, talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And spring is this month. Isn't that exciting? It feels like things are starting to happen. I'm seeing daffodils about to erupt with colors. My winter blooming jasmines have been in bloom for a while. Daffodils are up. The peach trees, no, the cherry trees are starting to bloom this week all around town. So those are all indications, or early indications of what is spring? When is it about to happen? Well, it's now. Actually, if you were thinking about doing some gardening this next spring season, that'd be vegetables, like all your summer blooming, fruiting things. We're talking tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and eggplants and all squash, all those things. You really should start those plants. If you're going to start them by seed, you should start those well in advance of the spring planting season, which is typically the end of April, first part of May. That's kind of our window for starting, at least at this elevation. You folks tuned in from, let's say it's Sedona, Camp Verde, Mayer, Kingman, Hillside, the Kirklands, the lower elevation down. You might be starting even mid April, maybe beginning. It depends on the season somewhat. And so you should be thinking about starting your plants, seedlings, by now. Like you need to be 6 to 8 weeks before the planting season. Well, let's back the math up. You got 2 months from now, that'd be May 1st. You're going to be putting full on plants out in the yard. You really don't want to start seed directly in the soil, not here at this elevation. And the reason is it's so cool at night. The soil it takes a while for it to warm up. It's all about temperature. When that soil is up around 45, 50, 55 degrees, that's what ignites seed to start germinating. They kind of hold in stasis until the soil finally gets warm enough. Well, that might be for you folks on the ridge lines. It might not be until May before you have soil that's that warm. So it's better to start by plants, by starter plants, than it is to start by seed directly in the soil. So usually we're starting with a good tray, some containers, maybe some eggshells, some peat pots. We're getting our seed. We're starting those a couple months before we're planning on planting those in the yard so that we can have fully established plants directly into the gardens. So we're at least a couple months ahead of the growing season. Otherwise, it'll be the end of this. It'll be September before you're even thinking about having tomatoes or eggplants or some of these bigger, more heat-loving plants. To jumpstart that, you start with plant starts. So actually fully established, fully rooted plants out there in the yard. And the way to do that is get your seed now, plant it out now, start them in a windowsill or underneath a special grow light. You just kind of start things. And so if you don't like doing that, or you don't have space, or you're about to take that cruise through the Panama Canal and I just don't have time, I want to be gone for 3 weeks. Don't worry. My name's Ken. We're just friends. We're talking over the airwaves, over the back fence of the garden and I got your back. And so we are starting our plants now going into the gardens. And we've got a whole host of gardens plants we're going to introduce here. In fact, you can put your name on some of those. We're letting you purchase those now so when they get delivered the first part of April, you just got them. There's a couple that I really like. They're kind of my favorites. So at the Lain Casa, we are Pico de Gallo nuts. I mean, my country away from my country is Mexico. I just love going down and we'll watch the beach, wade in the warm blue waters and just eat Pico de Gallo pretty much the entire time. It's crazy. So it's good on chips. It's good on with guacamole. It's good everywhere. So fresh tomatoes, fresh peppers, fresh cilantro, fresh onions. Oh, fresh. My mouth's watering. Must be hungry thinking about it. So just freshness. It's salsa, but it's fresh salsa, pico de gallo. It's a truly Arizona thing. And so my favorites for my favorite tomato is got to be, it's called a early girly glow tomato. It's a medium size, like tennis ball size tomato. But the reason I like the girly glow, like girly, Gurley, like Girly Street, girly glow, because it's so early. It produces better, faster, sooner than any other. So you'll be having tomatoes the end of July, August, September, October. I mean, it's just, whereas some of these other bigger ones like beefsteak, brandywine, these great big heirloom tomatoes, shoot, it could be October before they start producing, depending on the nights and the temperature. For sure, you only want to start those by full-on established big plant. Well, I do that with full-on established big early producing tomatoes. Early girly is a better producing, and it is the best tomato for salsas. Any kind of sautés. I mean, they're good in salads, but they get just enough zest. They're not so sweet that they kind of lose their flavor when you're adding some peppers and things, but you just have this great, rich, deep flavor. And then I really do like, it's a variety of jalapeno zing. There's two actually that are jalapeno variations. There's a serrano spice shot, so serrano spice shot, or jalapeno zing. Those two are like the perfect pico de gallo, fresh in the kitchen. I mean, they've got some heat, but they're not so crazy that your face melts off like habanero. Oh my gosh, what do you do with those things? They've got so much heat, you can't feel your face, much less have flavor. It's too much. I like a sweeter, bigger, thicker walled. You could stuff them and grill them on the grill. You can just fresh in salsas. And so this week, if you're part of my garden club, so Waters Garden Center, been around 63 years this month. So we have a weekly garden column. And part of that garden column is I share my favorite varieties grown here locally for the mountains of Arizona. I also took the time to put down my pico de gallo recipe. And that recipe is going to be right. There's a link to it. Put it on my landing page. My kids keep asking me for that because we have it at every family gathering. I said, I got to write this down. Hey, I wrote it down. Why not share it with everyone? And so that's kind of what happened. So if you want that, and it's all about the sequence, it's about the parts. So I just gave you, have your tomato. Girly glow is the best. Having the right jalapeno or serrano, so serrano zing or serrano spice shot or jalapeno zing. Those two, they've got heat, but they're sweet. They're big, but they've got thick walls. They're meaty, fleshy. The cilantro sunrise. It doesn't bolt as fast as some of the other varieties of herbs, and so sometimes they'll take on more of our cool nights, bright days. It does better in a sweet onion. So I put that list together. And the sequence, and then how much vinegar and how much salt and how much lime and when do you put what? And I always start with the spicy things first, the peppers and the onions. I put some salt and I put some vinegar on top, let them simmer while I'm chopping up my tomatoes. And then I lastly put on the cilantro. And the cilantro, I put the entire stem. The more stems, the better. Stem is where all the rich flavor is, but you got to chop it up real fine. So I always start with this. Everyone just wants the foliage of cilantro. No, you really bring out the flavor when you put the stems in too. So I'm chopping that up real fine. Then I get this in, I blend it all together, and it will melt in your mouth. People are just the kids, they'll just eat it like soup. I don't know, just the fresh pico de gallo. It's so delicious. It fills the entire house up with this fresh garden. Just it smells of sunrise, of just garden earthy beauty, just of health. That's great pico de gallo. Going back to not my recipe, it's just basically going back to, you need to start. If you're going to start your own by seed, start now. If you don't, I'll have those varieties available for you. later. So we're starting them right now.
Growing up in Prescott, we knew spring was here when my grandmother's lilacs bloomed. I'm Lisa Waters Lain, and my grandmother would be thrilled with the new bloomerang purple lilacs at Waters Garden Center. They don't just bloom once in spring, they bloom again in summer. Mine bloomed 3 times last year, making spring last well into fall, and just $29.99. Come check out all the heavenly new sights and scents that are making this spring the most beautiful ever. Lilacs like Grandma used to grow and better. Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain and the Top 10 Gardener Podcast. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show.
And we're back with Lisa Waters Lain in the studio. She comes each week with your garden questions. Just what are your neighbors? What are other gardeners dealing with, asking, struggling, celebrating? And so this segment's all about, well, you, gardeners, and just sharing that knowledge. Welcome back to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
So we're powering up the spring 2 weeks. I feel the pressure. 2 weeks.
Yeah,
2
till open
weeks
house.
till spring open house. I'm not sure we're ready. We need more plants. We keep selling the plants.
They come in.
As soon as they come in, they go out. So we'll be empty. We need more. It's kind of exciting.
It is very exciting. So
lots of big properties, big big gardens, big landscapes. It's big. Everything's bigger. Like I need 30 trees. We're filling up. I need the entire bed of peonies. I need all of those evergreens. Kind of nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
It's fun when you have those sales. That's for sure.
So garden questions. What are people talking about that maybe we can learn from or glean some answers, and try to stump me, will you? It's kind of get bored.
That's hard to do anymore. So Tom is out in Chino. Last year, his apple tree had woolly apple aphids on it. He wants to know, he's assuming that's a pretty common issue with an apple tree. And when do you got to start looking for them? When are they going to show up, and how do you treat them?
So woolly apple aphids. So this gets on not just apples, but crab apples, anything with do with an apple variety. They get on those. And the indication of woolly apple aphid, the reason they call it woolly apple aphid is it'll be in the trunk, the main canopy, on those lower branches. You'll see this fuzzy, cottony, kind of woolly looking material. And that's an indication that you've got that aphid. And aphids are very common here. They fly around, they attach themselves, and they suck the juice out of your plant. Woolly apple aphids are a little different in that they love the taste of apples. That's their main thing, or crab apples. And then they don't just fly around. They attack the roots, actually. They're on the roots. They come back from the roots. And so you can treat them this year, and you can take them out. And so oil, anything will kill them. It's pretty easy. But then they come back every year on you. So you have to kind of moderate or watch for this symptom, these woolly, cottony masses that suck the juice out of your apple tree. They rarely kill the tree. They just make it ugly. They stress it out. They can make the fruit smaller, leaves smaller. So you do want to get on it. But they live in the root structural nodules down. If you see a tree that's died from that over decades, you pull up the roots and you'll see all these nodules on there. And that's woolly apple aphids. If it's down there, they just come back every year. There's no solution for it. You've got them, you're going to have them. That's it. The tree can live for decades with it. Just watch for it and get an oil, just horticultural oil. Spritz it as you see it. You don't have to do anything kind of like, you don't poison yourself and the dogs just to kill woolly aphid. They're not that threatening. But just an oil will take them out. To look over March, April seems to be when they show up. That's Tom's question. Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, Cottonwood, Prescott, Skull Valley, all this part of the area of the state loves aphids, or the aphids love us. And so they just show up.
When do regular aphids show up? It's usually April.
Yeah, same time. It'd
Yeah.
be now.
I think
In
so.
fact, we've seen some on some yuccas already.
Yeah.
So they're starting to show up. It's early.
Mhm.
As soon as the roses start to leaf out, which is like daily now, they're,
Yeah.
they're happening now. They'll be attracted to the rose new leaves,
Mhm.
and so they'll tend to show up then. So there's different types. So you've got little like rose aphids. They're cute, green. They're just so cute. You got tree
Cute.
aphids. You get on like cottonwoods, plums, pears. They're big, gnarly. They look like spiders. They're
Mhm.
nasty looking big things. You got woolly aphids, which you don't even see the aphid. They're just like covered in wool. And so they all show up.
Mhm.
They like early spring. They take a break for summer and hibernate underground. They come back in the fall. So like
Mhm.
bright days, cold nights, that's when you see aphids.
And they can actually get onto evergreen trees,
Oh,
spruce,
yeah.
things like that. People
Pine
don't
trees.
think about that, but
Yeah.
spruce and pine, you got to watch out for them. And they're brownish black, so they look like they're part of
Yeah.
your branch.
Yeah.
So
It's a tree
yeah.
aphid. They
Mhm.
take on the same colors, that black kind of in between all the pine nodules or bark.
Mhm.
They tuck on that same color, and they're like aphids on steroids. But they love the very top of
Right.
the trees, and then you'll get what we call honeydew on your car. So you
Mhm.
park underneath a pine tree that's, let's say, a ponderosa that has tree aphids in the top. You don't see the aphids because they're 80 feet up in the air,
Mhm.
but the excrement or aphid poo or aphid dew puts these spots all over your car
Yeah.
of like sap, and they're hard to clean off. And so
Mhm.
that's aphids up top. That's the only thing that does that. If you see that, spray them with an oil if you can up there, or you treat the tree with fertilome tree and shrub drench. The tree will actually absorb that and taint the sap that they're eating.
Mhm.
Kind of keeps them out.
Okay.
Anyway, come see us if you have that. If you see spotting in your car, that's irritating. Don't let them do that. Come see us. We'll show you how to deal with it.
All right. Next question is from Sandra in Prescott Valley. So she wants to try planting peonies. Never done it before. Wants to know what kind of soil they want,
Oh,
and
good.
also
Yeah.
where to locate them
Awesome.
for
Yeah.
their to be happy.
Sandra, great question. There are fabulous peonies in Prescott Valley. You can grow them nicely. The secret out there, because you all have this heavy clay soil, and there's a caliche layer that goes throughout the valley, this hard, compacted soil. Many times it's chalky colored, and soil doesn't penetrate through that. So peony love drainage. They like soil that breathes. So they're much like a rhubarb or something. They've got this real fleshy, chunky, carbo type of root.
Carbo.
Yeah, I'm making up words. Going all Susan on folks. Anyway, that root is so fleshy it can rot in heavy, dense soil. So you need to lighten things up. And so raised beds, containers, or a garden soil that's been amended heavily. And peonies are unique in that they're very long-lived, probably one of the longest-lived perennials out there. They'll live easily 50 years. I mean,
Wow.
people pass down peonies from generation to generation. They're very long-lived. So put them where you want to keep them for years, not just a season. They're going to come back every year. If you lose it, it will be from that heavy clay soil in Prescott Valley where it just got dense. You're watering too much. Then some rains come in the monsoon, August, September. Now you double down on the rain and it just sat there and rotted on you. So it'll flop over, turn yellow, stop blooming. So drainage, more potting soil. Think about raised beds and containers.
And what kind of light do they need?
Oh, sun. More sun equals more flowers. So
Okay.
I'd say full sun, at least I'd say 4 or 5 hours of sun for a nice peony, that big peony flower.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a shade plant, or it'll lean and stretch to the sun. But the more sun, like Prescott Valley is perfect. There's so much sun and wind out there. They'll like that. And interesting for you folks in the deer population area, deer and javelina, they don't eat peony. So they're good for you too.
But you don't eat them.
Yeah, probably not good for you too, but animals don't eat them either.
Okay. Our next question is from Lauren. She's out in Prescott Valley. Prescott. Wants to know on your thought on using Elaeagnus silverberry as a hedge.
Yeah.
And is it as deer proof as they say?
Yeah, it is deer proof. Yeah. Eleagnus is a native, or silverberry is the common name. It's a native. You grow the native one is kind of blue color with a silver underneath.
It's actually really pretty.
It's quite pretty and very fragrant flowers. There's another variety is variegated with a gold tinge. It's quite striking. Gets up about head high, much wider and high. It's head height, which and wider, dense, evergreen foliage, and it is bulletproof. Get up to size, you don't have to care for it anymore. It's just don't have to fertilize, don't have to water, just let it grow. And animals absolutely will not eat silverberry.
If life is a bowl of cherries, why not make them the biggest, sweetest cherries ever?
Waters Garden Center is super excited to introduce our new organic fruit and vegetable plant food.
This fertilizer has the bonus of added calcium that gives fruit trees and veggies an extra boost to produce healthy, abundant crops.
Feed your plants now to help them thrive and grow more fruits than ever. And just $27 for a 20-pound bag.
Safe, natural, organic fruit and vegetable plant food only at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So it has been unusually warm. I mean, warmer than most years. So every year spring hits at the same time, plus or minus about 3 weeks. It can be late, it can be early. This year it is early. And you're seeing that. So I'm tempted to wear shorts. I'm right there, short pants. I'm just bring it. If it's chilly in the morning, then it warms right up. I thought it was going to heat stroke a little earlier. I was doing some shade fabric, new shade fabric underneath the greenhouses, and it's hot up in the corner, up in the eaves of a greenhouse. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to drink more water. What that also does is it wakes the gardens up early. So you're seeing that. Several of the fruit trees are starting. So your native cherry trees, they're starting to bloom. You're seeing some of your jasmines are starting to bloom. Things are starting. And so also bugs are starting. And so we've seen this wave of customers in. I mean, it's everyone's, all the neighborhoods. We're seeing bark beetle getting into and starting to eat early ponderosa pine. So pine trees, that'd be Austrian pines, all pines, but especially their favorite, their native taste buds are made for ponderosa pines. If you have ponderosas, I would suggest protecting them, and I'll tell you how to do that. Also, we've had pinyon pine scales. Pinyon pines are the next layer down from ponderosas are pinyon pines. It's that chaparral area. It's where it's where all the manzanitas start to show up, and the banana yuccas and some of these others. That's where the pinyon pines roam around. They are being attacked ferociously right now with bark beetle, pinyon pines. And so, whoops! And I got to tell you, folks, before you go on air, you should really hold on, stop. Turn off your phone. Don't have alarms going off. Oops, sorry about that. Anyway, bark beetle on ponderosas, and then pinyon pine scale on your pinyon pines. That's their favorite. So you see pinyon pines have the shorter needles, ponderosas have the long needles. And so if you see a pinhole in the bark of a pine tree, that is one thing and one thing only, bark beetle. It will get underneath the bark and girdle the tree. They'll collect, they just literally eat all the bark, all the wood underneath the bark. Very serious, extremely dangerous. They will take down the biggest of trees if left unchecked. The shorter needle, that's pinyon pine scale, and you really can't see the scale. But if you look closely at the needle and you see a little dot on the needle, not a hole, but an actual, like someone took a number 2 pencil and just put a little dot each one of those dots is a scale. What they're doing is they're piercing the needle, and they suck the juice out of it. And they will suck that tree till it is dead. There's not one living needle left. The plant literally starves to death because it has no foliage to create photosynthesis to collect all the sunlight. It literally starves to death. If left untreated, they will kill that tree within 18 months. I mean, it just obliterates them. So I've seen it too many times. It just hurts me. I mean, 100, 200, 300-year-old tree. This tree's been here before Columbus landed. And now it's taken out because the season's early. It's your neighborhood's been paved over. We've changed our environment. We get heat island effects. It's global warming. I don't know what it is, but they're under stress. Protect them and they will thrive. Ignore them and they will die. And you'll have $1,000 chainsaw bill coming your way because they're expensive to get out of there. What to do? Two things. One, fertilize with 744 all-purpose plant food immediately, right now. In fact, put the radio down, get in your car, turn the channel to this station, and listen to us as you're driving to the garden center. You need to fertilize these plants. A healthy plant that's got some water and food can take on the environment by themselves. While you're here, secondly, there's a product, it's a liquid. It's called Systemic Drench. It's put out by Fertilome. They're the manufacturer. This is the greatest technology. It's the newest systemic out there. You mix it up in a watering can. You do not need to be an arborist. Mix up a watering can and you pour it right at the base of the tree, right where the trunk meets the ground. That's where you pour this. The tree will naturally pick it up, take that to drench underneath the bug. It's like an antibiotic. It takes it and brings it up underneath the bark and just treats the entire under the bark area, obliterates bark beetle, really it treats it. One treatment lasts for the entire year. So you once and done. It also works on ciliads and aphids and some of these other things that get on trees. But really what you're focused on right now, I'm telling you as a friend, if you got pine trees, you should really take care of them or take a close look or treat them. It's just, you cannot go wrong by fertilizing them. It brings the color out, gives them healthier. And by treating them preventatively, if nothing else, with the soil tree and shrub drench by Fertilome. Great stuff. I mean, I just can't emphasize that enough. Do it now, sometime by the end of this month. Sooner is better, because this stuff takes a while to go up the tree. It travels about a foot a day or so. So it'll take a while to treat the whole tree, but you do it once, there's no reason for you to spray your trees. Don't spend $1,000. You can do it for 100 and treat all your trees. You can do this yourself. You don't have to have a professional. I'll show you how. Just come talk to us, but just put it on your note. Take a look. Note to self, pine trees are being attacked. I should protect my trees. Something very special happens next weekend. This is March 15, 16, 17. For 62 years, we've celebrated the start of the spring season here at Waters Garden Center. And the way we do that is we've got special classes, giveaways, raffles. Mainly, we bring in the growers that are developing these new plants here at Waters Garden Center. They feature them. So I bring them in, make them famous. They make sure they bring some of their latest, greatest, like this batch isn't supposed to be released until next year, the end of this year. They bring them with, they show them off. And so I get the experts coming to Waters Gardens, and they're going to teach the class on Saturday at 9:30. I'm just going to line them up and say, hey, Chris, how did you actually develop this new desert willow? How'd you come up with that? And so he's a great storyteller. He'll share how his family has created. He's one of the foremost gardeners. He probably has more patents under his family's name than we have socks in the drawer. It's amazing what kind of new plants are coming up with. So they're hanging out here. They'll show off the plants. Friday at 3:00. That's this coming Friday, the 15th. It's plant happy hour. I'm going to present what I see as the new plants. The growers will do it on Saturday. I'll kind of show off. It's much more casual. Friday at 3, and it's just an opportunity to see the latest, greatest things. We are filling the garden center up right now with the plants, getting ready for spring 2024. You're welcome to join us. It's going to be fun all weekend long. Lots of plants going off, just lots of classes, lots of experts, horticulturalists everywhere. Lisa and I will just camp out on Sunday, just answering questions underneath the front greenhouse. So you get the foremost horticulturalists here in the county, probably one in the state, right here all Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, March 15, 16, 17, 62nd Spring Open House here at Waters Garden Center, Prescott, Arizona.
The Top 10 Gardener, your source for timely garden advice, seasonally correct for the garden, guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lain. She comes each week and just shares her garden insights and a different perspective. I love gardening in that if you get 10 gardeners in a room, you ask them a garden question, you get at least 12, 14, 16 garden answers. It's like there's way more than just one way or favorite or companions to go with. So
Definitely.
it's good to have Lisa in the studio. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Always good to be back.
Why?
Because I get a break from work.
Okay. Yeah. I get to spend time with a very handsome man. He's so smart and
Yes.
brilliant. And he's given me 4 children. And I'm
Mhm.
hoping for
4
5.
grandchildren. No. Unless it's a dog or a cat, you ain't getting it.
Plenty of those too. Anyway, so we own a garden center together, Waters Garden Center. Lisa, her father started the garden center, Waters Garden Center, Harold Waters. So she is a Waters. Harold had 4 very pretty daughters. And I took a liking to the youngest, and I think the most vibrant of all.
The smartest,
of them.
definitely.
Smartest, prettiest,
No,
and smartest.
just kidding.
No, I'm not. It's very serious.
I am, but I don't think my sisters listen to the show, so
No.
we're fine.
Even if they do, it doesn't matter. I didn't marry them. They aren't working in the garden center.
Nope.
They're over in
good.
Portugal right now or wherever they're at. Okay. All right. So enough.
Enough of that silliness. So yeah, spring is springing. It's definitely been beautiful weather. Looking at some of the fruit trees, some
They're
of those
budding
early
out.
blooming
Yeah.
guys are kind of really setting their buds.
It's March.
So
It's time.
yeah, wow, I can't believe it's March already.
You know, after that last snowstorm, I went, that is it. I'm tired of winter. I'm sick of this.
Mm,
And then it turned to spring and I went, I'm happy now.
Mhm.
It's sunnier, brighter, better.
It
The
is.
plants are happier. They said the same thing.
Right. Yeah, the soil temps are starting to warm
Yeah.
up. They're going yay. So I brought in a couple of just early spring flowers, some of my favorites. The first
the
one,
listeners can't actually see
I
that.
know, I wanna
The
talk
podcast
to 'em
folks
about
can.
it. So this
Okay.
is the Champagne Bubbles poppy. So the thing I love
Champagne
about this
Bubbles.
poppy is the flowers are probably 5
That is an
inches
awesome
across.
picture. Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
And most of them are mixed. So you're going to get pinks and yellows and oranges and whites in the same plant. And it screams spring.
Yeah,
It really,
it does.
really does. And it's just a really bright addition. Great in a container by a front door. Just screaming hello, likes the full sun on it, especially this time of year. Just so pretty.
I think poppies, for those folks that are just listening, not watching. So the Apple folks, thank you very much. Spotify folks, hey, we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in the podcast. The radio folks, poppies are like California poppies, the orange one. It is a cousin of that, only it's on steroids. So it's got the same exact
taller.
foliage as a California poppy, but the flowers elongate 5 times the height. So it's standing 18 inches above. And then the flowers are, instead of an orange, silver dollar size, this is baseball size, bright pink. But it's got the same poppy flower. It's got a nice eye in the middle. It's got a yellow ring, then bright colors. Pollinator, bees love them.
Mhm.
Poppies are very good at bright days, cold nights. They're not going to be affected by snow and frost. You have to cover them. They're happy with that.
Yeah.
And then you'll see, look at all those buds underneath.
Yeah.
So it's got 2 flowers on top that are the size of baseballs. And it's got 2, 4, 6, 7 additional buds sitting there waiting to open. So when this flower gets done, you cut it back as close to the foliage as you can, and the next flower buds take over. It'll bloom like this all winter. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I
quite
mean,
a long
all spring.
Right. Long time. So it's a great one. So the other one that I think always kind of announces spring and is a great plant for here to go through
Companions.
all season is the snapdragon. It's a nice statement plant because they get tall. So they're usually 12 to 18 inches tall. They come in an assortment of colors from magenta, pink, yellow, white. And it just is great because it's animal resistant. So if you can't put your pansies out in the kale because of the javelina, you can put out the snapdragons and enjoy those. So this one is the magenta one.
I don't smell that. They don't smell. They're just
they don't really smell.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why the critters leave them alone. I don't know.
Could be. I think it's because the sap is real milky and they don't like that. The sap, they taste bad to them.
Okay.
So they're pretty to look at, but bad to eat.
So just something to think about if you've got the critters, but you still want some bright color out there. Snapdragons are perfect for that.
I think every garden should have snapdragons, because snapdragons, we sell them as an annual flower. That is, they're going to live for a year, bloom, and then, but they think they're a perennial. They come back year after year. They seed. They spread throughout the yard. They're just happy, cheery. Spring and fall is when they really shine. Summer, they take a little break and they're just green. And winter, they take a little break and they're just green with some spent flower heads. But they're good flower for here.
They do drop
now's
seed.
the time.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Now's the time to be getting them in.
And
so I just wanted to show those.
These on camera. These are companion plants. They go together. Poppies and snapdragons, they go together.
Definitely. So we also have some other plants coming in that are people always ask me for. Well, they're showing up this week. Gardenias. So we're getting the sweet tea gardenia, which is more the traditional one, has that double flower to it. It's a rebloomer, so it's going to bloom throughout the season. So we're getting those in, and then we're also getting the sweet star, which is more of a single flower, simple flower to it.
Classic.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty.
And just as fragrant as the double. It really, really is. We had that one for years, and I loved it. They both just smell wonderful. And the star, the sweet star, actually puts on like a little berry more towards the end of the season. So you kind of get a little more seasonality out of it with the flowers in the summer and the little orange berry in the fall.
Folks are tricked. They don't think we can grow gardenias, especially you Southern folks. You think you're so special. I'm from Mississippi. I'm from Alabama. We only grow gardenias here. No, we can grow them up here too. The secret is you got to have a cold hardy variety, and those two are classic. They will take any amount of winter we have.
Right.
Evergreen. White flower, the flowers are a touch smaller than, let's say, the tropical variety, but more flowers, almost, I think, more fragrant because the amount of flowers, and they're repeat bloomers. They bloom over and over throughout the season. Great in a container on your patios, your decks, where you're going to entertain and just sip a glass of wine while watching the sunsets, sipping coffee in the morning, watching hummingbirds and your gardenias. That's where you want those. So great plant for here. In more of a shaded areas, you need some protection.
It can take more sun than you think.
It's an amazing amount of sun, but at midday, it just I find it'll take the sun, but it doesn't bloom as well. In a east or west facing, blooms like crazy.
Yeah,
non-stop.
Definitely. Okay. So another plant that we're getting in is the first time we've had this one. I mean, it's a lilac. Not the first time we've had lilacs, but this one is called Virtual Violet.
Ooh, sounds purpley.
It does.
Violet-y.
So what makes this one a little different
Glows in the dark.
How'd you know? No, the leaves actually have like a aura or a ring of purple around the leaves.
Oh, cool.
And then so that's the new leaves will look like that. Then they'll green up. And they also have deep purple stems.
Oh, neat. Wow.
And then you have the purple or violet flower on there. So I'm really excited about that. To have something different in the leaf color, and I love that they're bringing something new out in that. It's going to be one of the bigger ones, kind of your 6x6
Gotcha.
ones out there.
Yeah.
But what a fun one to try. I think that. And
Snag one for us before all the listeners grab them. Would you just kind of, because, we'll get 20 of them in and they're gone in like a Saturday. So because they're so new and different, grab one and we'll decide whether to plant it or what to swap out later. Yeah. I did just pull a rose bush out. Get too big and old.
Yeah.
Could be a good place.
Yes, definitely. We're also getting a new one.
Out of time.
I'm out of time.
I mean, like
Pink Teeny. Come and talk to us about the Pink Teeny.
You had to get it in. Pink Teeny. What's a purple one?
Virtual Violet.
Virtual Violet. Thank you, Lisa. Ken and Lisa Lain, the mountain gardeners throughout the week. We love talking lilacs, gardenias, snapdragons, and poppies here at Waters Garden Center. Waters Garden companion plants for March are Oklahoma redbud, mountain heaths, rosemary creeper, Prescott pansies, and fanciful forsythia.
Oklahoma redbud grows to just 16 feet tall. This local native is super easy to grow.
Vibrant red flowers cloak the branches of early spring.
Luscious heart-shaped leaves emerge with a soft pink tinge that matures to a vibrant green.
Shop the brightest blooming trees in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com in Prescott.
You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show with Ken Lain. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So I had mentioned at the bottom of the hour that bark beetle and pinyon pine scale were out how to treat them. You're fertilizing and you are adding or treating them with a bug preventer called systemic drench, so tree and shrub drench. If you need more on that, come talk to us. I can show you exactly how to put it on. It's super easy. You just need a couple watering cans, a bottle or two of this stuff, and you are good to go. You can treat everything in about an hour or less. Really easy, and you're effective for a year. In addition to that, everything in the yard should be fed. They're hungry. They've gone through winter. They're dry as a bone. They really need to activate or hydrate that soil. But before you're doing that, put some fertilizer down, some plant food, and you can encourage new growth coming out of those plants this spring. And so you're setting the stage now for better growth throughout the entire growing season. And what do? So stay away for the love of gardening, please stay away from synthetic fertilizers. You're going to poison us all. My goodness. And get rid of that turf builder, all that garbage that the Miracle Grows. Those are just chemical petroleum-based products. They get into our water supply. If you're on a well, for sure, don't poison yourself by putting a bunch of fertilizers down there. You need to use an organic or all natural fertilizer. Safe. They break down much slower. The plants take in all of the food. They much prefer organic foods, and synthetics. They burn off your worms, mycorrhizal colonies. They do more damage than good. Organics feed your worms, encourage healthier soils, and encourage better fruits, larger flowers, more roses, bigger, better, brighter. And I put together a 7-4-4 all-purpose plant food. The main ingredient, cottonseed meal. Number 2, bird guano. Number 3, some iron, sulfur. It's made for here. It's granular. It's pelletized, so it spreads out. Has kind of an earthy smell because it is earthy, but it really makes plants happy, keeps them healthy. If you've got evergreens, because they're being attacked right now, fertilize. Start with those. That cottonseed meal is very acidic. And then we're putting soil sulfur in that mix to make it even more acidic because we're trying to counteract your water that's very alkaline. So we're trying to counteract some of that and then stimulate that's the roots so they'll take it up and be a healthier plant. If you've got fruit trees, you really need to fertilize. You got to get out there and get that going. And so fertilize everything with a granular food. You put it right over top of the rock. It goes through the rock, it goes through the fabrics, it gets down the soil. Super, super easy. Just spread it. I usually have my handheld spreader. I fill it up. I just walk around underneath the canopy of my trees, underneath my shrubs, and they're just so happy. They're just they delight in having a little bit of food. They get chubby and full, and they erupt with better, brighter color. So fertilize everything. I cannot emphasize that enough. You're going to fertilize more often here than you do other parts of the country because we don't have natural occurring. We don't have topsoil. We have rock, caliche, clay, but soil, we don't call it soil. We call it other names, nasty names. And so crushed granite. So you need to fertilize more often here than you do other parts of the country. And now this is one of the most critical times right now. The month of March is when you fertilize. Here's an insider tip. What I do in my gardens, my name's Ken. Okay, we're just friends. We're talking over the back fence. It's working in my yard. I think it's going to work in yours too. So I put the all-purpose plant food down over everything right now. I just put it out and I don't work it in. I just put it out there and I'm going to expect the rains and the weather and the irrigation to release it over time, over the next 3 months. I'm not in a hurry. I'm in this for the long haul. In addition, I get a bag of soil sulfur. I know I mentioned that we put a little bit of soil sulfur in the food we make here for local gardens. But plants, they really like things more acidic. But our soil and our water is so alkaline that it affects how things bloom, the size of the fruits. It just affects how the gardens look. So in the early spring, I do two things. I put the all-purpose food down and I put soil sulfur down. Sulfur, when you lower that pH, it makes them even greener and it brings that fragrance out. Oh, if you get that pH just right. pH is sort of like if you have had a pool or a hot tub, you're always checking the pH. You get the pH too high, you get it too low, you jump in, you feel like your skin's going to crawl off if it gets too high or too low. Well, plants are the same way, only they can't get out of the pool. They're stuck there. And so their roots are just sitting there, just being agitated by this high pH. Well, if we can lower that down, and sulfur, it literally looks like little sulfur pellets. And as water hits it, it just slowly makes the soil more acidic. Your plants just go crazy with that. They love it. Bigger roses, bigger peaches, plums. You've got more aggressive growth on your aspens and your pine trees. It just makes everything look great. If you've got anything that loves acid, like hydrangeas and hollies and camellias and all these daphnes, even lilacs, the fragrance of a lilac will just erupt in that afternoon sunlight. Just kind of fragrant. The entire part of the yard will be filled with that fragrance of lilac just by lowering that pH. A lot of that's chemistry, not so much the DNA of the plant. We're simply bringing out the most out of those spring bloomers. And so that's the way you do it. So right now, two things: fertilize everything with the all-purpose plant food. I do have a second food. If you're into organic vegetables, fruits, berries, grapes, that kind of, I did make a all natural 6447 fruit vegetable food. Okay, so 644 nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, 7% calcium. So it's still pelletized, all organic, completely, but it's pelletized, so it's easy to spread. And then as the plants break it down, what calcium does in addition to your regular food is it actually ups the size of your fruit and brings out the flavor again, brings out the brightness. So calcium was what does that. I know that you're going to be lacking calcium because our alkalinity is so high. The clay soils just they wreak havoc on your trees. If I know that, and I can help you put the right fertilizer down that I know is going to react better with your trees and shrubs and keep it all organic. Well, that's what local neighborhood garden centers are for. We know the gardens. We're here to help you. I'm not some buyer out of Arkansas. I send 200 of those to every one of my stores. No, we're local yokel. We're here. We're friends. We know gardens. We're going to help you get bigger apples, more cherries, better apricots. We're going to help you get bigger clusters of grapes. simply by the food that you put down. So that 6447 fruit and vegetable food, or the original all-purpose plant food 744, it's all natural too. But the second I put a mineral in there, I can't call it organic. If you put iron and sulfur in there, although they're natural ingredients, you can't technically call it organic. So I'm an organic gardener mostly, but sometimes my evergreen trees, they prefer that cottonseed meal in the other one. So I've got two bagged. You get your handheld spreader, just spread it around there and go. That's how you use it.
Growing up in Prescott, we knew spring was here when my grandmother's lilacs bloomed. I'm Lisa Waters Lain, and my grandmother would be thrilled with the new bloomerang purple lilacs at Waters Garden Center. They don't just bloom once in spring, they bloom again in summer. Mine bloomed 3 times last year, making spring last well into fall, and just $29.99. Come check out all the heavenly new sights and scents that are making this spring the most beautiful ever. Lilacs like Grandma used to grow and better. Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So now we've had truckloads. I don't know how many truckloads. I'm starting to lose count. There's been a lot. We're stocking up. We have to fill up over 2 acres of garden center with plants. You don't do that with just one truck. It's like, it takes a while. It'll take us another 3 weeks to really get it full. But the perennials, the early perennials are starting to show up. This is euphorbias. Like we just had gopher plant or gopher spurge show up. Gopher spurge, its claim to fame is you put one plant out there and it will scare away all your pocket gophers. I can tell you that is not true. You can't believe everything that's on the internet. I'm telling you, my name's Ken. This has worked for me. And I've had gophers not eat that plant, but I've had them come up right beside it. So they didn't even keep them out of that garden. So it took a time, but they're a beautiful, drought hardy, easy evergreen. They're starting to bloom yellow all around town. It's just a great low maintenance type of spreading succulent, really. So euphorbias are great plants for here, and animals don't eat them. It's just a great plant. Another one that you're seeing show up, peonies. I thought I would touch on because I still have customers getting confused. What's the difference between all the peonies? The different growers have loves for different. They're kind of like people. They've got certain hobbies. And I love growing big peonies. I only grow Itoh or the Japanese peonies. Itoh peonies, I-T-O-H, Itoh. They've grafted a regular English peony like your grandparents grew. They grafted a piece of that onto a very aggressive, big, chunky root of a tree peony. So now what you get is this shrub peony that's on steroids. I mean, it's just like 2-3 times the size of the peony that you were used to, that you grew up with. It's a new variation. It's not genetically altered. They're just doing it by grafting, pollinating, this kind of stuff. But what you get with that bigger flower, the flowers are the size of your hand. I mean, they're as big as, some of them as big as hibiscus, like tropical hibiscus, with the fragrance to go with it. They smell better because the flower is so big. And then the foliage on these plants are just gorgeous. They're very ferny. It's like a fern. It's a fern that puts on these flowers of the size of your hand. Whether it's flowering or not, it's a beautiful plant. Then you have English peonies. These are the ones that are people just know what they are. You grew up with English peonies. A lot of them grow naturally here too. So they're native to North America and, of course, England. So that's part of the country. They come in just a breath of colors. Come in single flowers and double flowers and everything in between. There's just so many variations. It's almost like roses. There's so many varieties, but generally they're smaller. They're shorter than the Itoh peonies. So they'll get, maybe if you're lucky, about knee high. That's about right. They still have the same ferny type of foliage, but they're just, it's pint size. It's half the size. And the flowers are generally smaller, but there's more of them. So yeah, they make up for it. Okay, I can't bloom like my cousin, the Itoh peony, but I can sure outproduce them. And so they just put on more flowers. And so overall, the bushes I find are about as fragrant as one another, just because this one maybe doesn't, each flower isn't quite as fragrant, but there's just there are more of them. Now, here's the insider tip on growing peonies. They love growing in the mountains of Arizona. They thrive here. They're one of the longest living perennial flowers you can put in your gardens. The average peony, if it's happy, will live 50 years or more. I mean, they're going to outlive you and I. They just keep coming back year after year after year. Here's the insider tip. They do not like soil that's soggy. They want to breathe. They got this real big fleshy root to it. And so if they sit in water that's real soggy, they start to rot on you. And once they start to rot, you can't recover from that. So you just want to make sure you amend the soil really well, and you're good. You're good to go. That's where peonies really do well in raised beds. I grow mine in a great big pot. It's been in there for big oxblood red, gigantic pot. I wanted to bring it up where I could actually enjoy the fragrance more. And so actually to elevate it some so that I don't even bend over. I just go, that's a beautiful flower. I just smell it right there every time I come and go from my house. So that's the way I do it. But in a container, you can ensure by filling that pot up with potting soil and then plant it directly in there, you have 100% golden drainage. So that plant is just going to thrive for decades in that one pot. Never have to transplant. It just goes in the ground. Make sure you're amending that with some compost or something. Don't just throw it into that junky soil you got in your yard. Do some gardening and make it happy in that garden soil. And if you do that, literally you have a perennial that comes back year after year after year. Peony, just beautiful peony for years of enjoyment because it's perennial, 50 years or more. That's it for this show. That's Ken and Lisa Lain, the mountain gardeners throughout the week. We love camping out here and helping friends at Waters Garden Center. Waters Garden companion plants for March are Oklahoma redbud, mountain heaths, rosemary creeper, Prescott pansies, and fanciful forsythia.
Oklahoma redbud grows to just 16 feet tall. This local native is super easy to grow.
Vibrant red flowers cloak the branches of early spring.
Luscious heart-shaped leaves emerge with a soft pink tinge that matures to a vibrant green.
Shop the brightest blooming trees in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com in Prescott.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.